All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Urban Gardener. I want to thank you all so much for joining me here today. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button right down below. In fact, hit the bell notification to be notified of upcoming episodes as we continue growing here on The Urban Gardener. All right, everybody, welcome to what is basically going to be our 2020 summer garden tour. And as you can tell, I live in your typical urban neighborhood here in Southern Oregon, as well as on a couple of different alleyways where we utilize whatever space we can to grow our own food. All right, so right here in the corner of our alleyway, the corner of our yard, in this space that doesn't look too well, it needs to be cleaned up a bit and weeded and all of that, but we've got strawberries that are growing here in a strawberry bed amongst some flowering plants and our rose bushes here. The issue I'm having with the strawberry plants in this bed this year is that most of them are pretty old. They've been around for several years and at this point are not producing strawberries very well. They're pretty small, if anything at all. So one of the great things about strawberry plants is they pretty much self-propagate themselves with these runners that come off of the plants and have little baby plants on them. As you can see here, what I've done is I've taken these little pots here and taken the runners and the little plants, and I've used these little clips here. These are like just little nail clips for wires you would nail onto a wall. One of the other things I've used as well is paper clips, and I've clipped off the ends of them to make a little loop so that you can basically hold down those runners right into the soil there so that they'll root. And it should only take about a week or two for them to root into the soil. And then at that point in time, you can just cut them off of the mother plant and you'll have whole new plants. So that's what we'll be doing with this bed this next year, is I've been propagating several different starts off of these plants. And we'll pull out a lot of the older plants. There are some new ones where the runners have basically self-established themselves in there. So we'll try to keep a lot of the newer ones, pull out the old ones, put these new ones in for next year, and hopefully we'll have a nice strawberry bed again for the next few years. So one of the new additions we've brought to the gardens this year are a few trees, apple trees to be specific. So we'll be trying to see how well these grow throughout this next year. I'm not going to get much this year, and as you can see, the apple that we do have on there isn't looking too well, but I've got a couple of more of these apple trees that we'll see here in just a few minutes on our back patio area. And here we've got what is our cat garden here. We've put in a nice little rock bed here shaped in a heart. Our flowers are still just trying to make it through the summer heat. Most of them have kind of died off, so kind of looking a little shabby there. But we got a nice little sitting bench, and I've got some rosemary growing there, and we got a little bit of catnip right underneath. We got Georgie. What are you doing hiding under there? Perfect little cat garden. Cats like to hang out there, of course, because of that catnip. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video. I just have to interrupt for just one moment and let you know about a new project that I have launched. It's called Enoch Vlogs. I'll put a link right down in the description, or you can click this iCard right here and it'll take you over to my new channel. It's going to be just a little bit more of a personal outlet for me here on YouTube. I'll still be doing the Urban Gardener and putting out gardening videos. I just hope that you'll join me on my new vlogs. And now back to our video. Looming right over our cat garden and some of our alleyway gardens here, we've got a plum tree. It's plumb full of plums. And they're delicious and all, but they sure make a mess of everything when they fall. There's just so much fruit, as well as these blackberries that are growing from the neighbor's backyard, pushing their way onto this side here. So I'm just trying to hold them back, and we'll see about any berries we might get probably next season. I don't see any of the flowers for this year. They should have already set fruit by now. And as you can see here, in one of our raised beds, we've got two of them right here along the alleyway. We've got some onions that planted out a little while back ago, and they are really struggling to get through this summer heat. I really kind of set them up for that struggle. Didn't get them put out early enough. So we're just trying to keep them wet so that they can survive this summer heat, and hopefully set onions when everything cools down. There is some new growth in there too, so pretty confident that we'll get some of those to survive and grow out some onions for us here in the next couple of months. In between here, I've got a watermelon plant, and again, this one here I'm not too sure about what we'll get ultimately. It has set out a couple of little fruit there, so just kind of keep an eye on that, see how well they do. In the second bed here, we've got cabbage. Got a couple of cabbages that are left over. I grew about, I think, 5 of them in here. One of them didn't work out, didn't grow very well. I pulled it out. I had another one that grew really well, and we've already harvested it. And then you see this one here down at the end, we pulled out, but I've left it on the bed there. You can see it's been really eaten up by slugs and other pests and everything. But the reason why I left it there is, if you see these other cabbages, they're pretty much untouched by those pests. And so leaving that in there has kept those pests occupied, and they've left alone the other 2 cabbages, which we'll probably harvest up here in just the next couple of days. Now on to what has been the inspiration for a lot of my alleyway gardening here. This is my neighbor's back alleyway garden just behind his house there. And when I moved here years ago, I saw this garden in the alleyway here, and really just inspired me to do a lot of my urban gardening that I've been doing. As you can see here, he's got some corn growing right out of a big large container, as well as other corn growing right out of the ground intermittently throughout the garden. We've got some squash, some ripe ones there hiding up underneath of the leaves. There's some nice tomatoes ripening up right now. He's got tons and tons of tomatoes though. It's really his main crop for this year, like these cherry tomatoes, which are really bursting off of this plant right now. This here was a volunteer for him from his last year's garden. So next to my neighbor's garden, got another one of my neighbor's houses right on the back of the alleyway. He lets me use this space so that we can grow our container potatoes. Now I'll put a link right down below for the video that shows last year's potato grow in our containers. As you can see, these plants are dying off, which means that they're about ready to be harvested here anytime soon. Probably this next week or so, I'll film a video showing our potato harvest. And you see this container here? That was ran into by one of my neighbors. In fact, I've got a video for you. I'm going to post an iCard right up above, right there, to a video that's on my new channel called Enoch Vlogs, and I explain exactly what happened to this container there. So I hope you guys go check out that video. Check out my other channel, Enoch Vlogs. Also, keep an eye out for our upcoming video on this potato harvest and see what we get out of those containers. And in between our potatoes here, as you can see, vining up this trellis, I've got a bean. It's called blawhide. It's a purple bean. And it's just starting to get running right now, so I'm sure it'll be producing beans real soon. Now, right along the alleyway here, just one more quick plug for an upcoming video. The next video we put out will be our second part of our summer garden tour, where we'll talk about our tomatoes and our peppers. So we'll explain what's going on with those there in that video. I'll put a link down below too when that one becomes available. So on my block here, we not only have this alleyway that runs alongside my house there, but we also have this alleyway here, which splits the block in half and kind of makes a T. We take advantage of using this space as well to grow more food. Here we're growing corn. I'll put a link right down below in the description to an episode we put out just a few weeks ago where we planted out these corn starts. Now I wasn't able to get corn seed this year, which is what we usually grow from and have some pretty good success with. But our corn starts were pretty root bound and pretty stressed out already, so when we put them in the ground, they just immediately started growing up and growing out their tassels and producing pollen. They don't have any ears, they're just too small to do that. So in the long run, corn's just pretty much a bust for us this year. We'll just have to take these out soon and start moving on to a different crop for fall. Although, take a look here. We got us a spaghetti squash. One of our spaghetti squash vines that's growing on the other side of the fence line there is come across to this side. We got a fruit hanging for us there, as well as right down here too. I don't see any fruit on this vine at all, but sure did find its way through that fence. Now right behind my back patio here, and this fence there, I've got the other set of corn that we planted out, and as you can tell, we've got the same result. Some of our plants are growing pretty strong and tall, some of them not so much, but again, the same situation. Plant starts were pretty stressed out to begin with, and immediately are just growing their pollen out, stretching out. So again, we'll have to just look forward to corn next season. One of the things we got growing here in between it is kale. Now, kale was my volunteer crop for this year. I grew out a kale plant this last season and let it go to seed, and to seed it went. Seed spread all over the place. We've got kale growing over here, kale back there, as well as a bunch of different kale that grew all over in our back patio space as well. Got a few more volunteers of some tomatoes here that I'll show you real quick, but like I said, look forward to our part 2 of this garden tour, where we'll talk more about our tomatoes and pepper plants that we got started this year. You're gonna get yourself stung, buddy. That's not gonna feel very good. Also here behind the back patio fence, we've got some oregano that I've let go to seed, and the bees are just loving it. collecting all of that pollen right next to our bee watering fountain. Although I think my cat drinks out of it more than the bees do. We've got this bean plant that's vining up here. It's a runner bean. But most of the flowers are dropping right now as we're pretty much in the hundreds right now. And next to the beans there, we've got this plant here, which is a longevity spinach. This plant was given to me by Patrice from Patrice's Projects. She brought out a plant start at the last National Heirloom Exposition last year, and I kept that start alive inside the house throughout the winter time. Planted it out this last spring, and it's just really doing well right now. Starting to really love the heat of the summer. They're delicious leaves. We'll have to start harvesting some soon. But yeah, if you want to grow greens during the summertime, I recommend growing this here. It's Gynera procubens. Now on the back of my carport here, got a couple of these above ground raised beds that I built out. And over the last couple of years, we've been growing cucumbers up this nylon trellis that we have fixed here to the back. And we've done all right. Last year I had cucumbers that grew on this side and grew really well, produced a lot of cucumbers, and not so much on this side. But this year it's the total opposite. This side, I've got a bunch of different cucumber fruits that are growing off of this plant. Some that I'm gonna have to get harvested up today. But yeah, just a little kind of different to have the opposite effect happen this year. Gets lots of really good sun through here, but maybe the plants just didn't get off to the best start. And we've got some onion here. It's just basically some bunching onion. And I like to harvest off a few of the leaves every now and then. This is one of our other trees that we've got in the container. This is a peach tree. And this year produced a bunch of flowers, didn't produce much of any fruit. I did get one fruit off of it that did ripen, and recently I let it ripen too much and it just fell right off of the tree. But I was able to discover it in time and got to eat it. It was really delicious. So I'm looking forward to more peaches growing off of this tree next year. Onto our back patio space. This year I added some water features. Got a cool 3-barrel water fountain here. And in there you can see we've got some decorative water lettuce. It looks really cool in there. And some of our local evergreen type trees and bushes and whatnot. Here we've got some more of those strawberry starts. These ones here I've already rooted off of the mother plants, and now they're just growing new leaves, and we'll try to get a good root system in there before we plant them out. And you got one that's kind of struggling there right now. But for the most part, they all look really good. We've got a bunch more of them, so we should have a really good, strong strawberry patch this next year. Here we've got a watermelon there in the wood container at the end of one of our above ground raised beds here in the back patio area. And the watermelon, late start to it, so I'm not hopeful to get anything, but the plant is starting to really grow right now. And in this bed here, we're just planning on getting something grown out for this next fall. And you can also see there's some more of our kale arts that popped up voluntarily from last year's kale plant. And we've got one of our red lettuces I've let go to seed, so we're going to collect some of that seed, hopefully plant that out here real soon for our fall crops. Right here too, something I added this year was a wire trellis. There's 3 wires going across here, across the fence that's between me and my neighbors there. And I've set up a planter box to grow beans. So we've got some vining beans growing across the trellises here. Real soon we'll be both sharing in on some crops of beans off of those plants there. And then we've got a ladder here. It's a wood ladder that leads up to some plants that I keep up on the roof there. But we'll save those for part 2 of the tour. So look for part 2 of this 2020 summer garden tour. And we'll talk about those plants, our peppers and our tomatoes that we've got growing this year. And this here going down the ladder is another bean plant that we have in a couple of buckets that are growing right behind that ladder there. They're just a runner bean. So again, producing a lot of flowers, a lot of them been dropping, but real hopeful here as it cools down in the next week or so that a lot of those flowers will pollinate. Now here you can see, as I talked about earlier, we have apple trees in containers here. So got this one apple right here, and these ones back here are actually doing pretty well and have produced a couple of fruits. So we're just waiting for those to ripen up there on this tree and over here on this other tree. Now these are supposed to be a red apple, but the trees seem to be doing really well and liking this space in the garden. So I think that's where we'll keep them. Over here I've got this wood trellis I put in, and growing up the trellis this year we've got some lemon cucumbers. We've got one right here. It's getting a little yellow. It's probably still pretty good right at this phase, but at this point with this one being as yellow as it is, it's really mature. We'll save seed off of that, and I think we got another one right over here too. Yep. So time to be harvesting some of those lemon cucumbers. And I've got this tall raised bed here. It's hard to even see because of all the leaves, but this is another wooden raised bed, but it's a really deep one that I have, and it's 2-tiered, so it tiers up, lower one and higher tier here. This year this cucumber plants, there's 2 of them, 2 cucumbers here, and they popped up voluntarily, just voluntarily. So that's all just came up with no work or effort of my own. It's actually trying to take over this whole other area here too, and hanging right off the front. Yeah, so yeah, there's a nice big nice cucumber right there that I'm gonna have to cut off the plant. There's a few more in there as well. I've been taking off several off of this plant already. Little succulents, and there's some more mint right there as well. We've got I think that there is stevia and a pineapple sage. Got another one of those raised beds right here, and in it we've got some leeks. Got some leeks growing in there. And those will size up and get a little bit bigger as we get into fall and it cools down. We've got some more cucumbers right in there. As you can see, I've got to start pulling some off of the plant as well there. We've got those growing up, these tower trellises that I built up. And in this bucket here, those are potatoes. So I've got this little, it's not even a 5-gallon bucket, it's a 4-gallon bucket there, and we're growing some potatoes in it. So I'll harvest up that bucket in the next upcoming video here in the next couple of weeks when we harvest up the potatoes and see what we've got for this year's container crop of potatoes. And right here we've got some more mint going to seed, so gonna have to cut that back up. So we'll just cut it back and it'll grow back up again, producing I believe this is an apple mint there. And then up here I think I've got like a spearmint. And this is our other water feature that we put back here. I really like this one here. That's a really nice one. And it's right outside of the window there, so I can open that up and just listen to the water trickling. It's just really, really nice. And got some flowers and a couple of other things growing in here. Some canna lily, and I think that's a lavender. So all right, there you have it. That's kind of a nice first part of a tour around our growing spaces here. Now remember, like I said, we've got part 2 coming up. You want to check that out. We're going to talk about our peppers and our tomatoes and the whole back area space that's on the other side of that back fence line where our corn was back there. So there's a whole nother growing space and some things there we'll talk about as well in our next upcoming episode, part 2 of the summer garden tour. So I want to thank you all for joining me for this tour and this episode. So I hope you give it a big thumbs up and hit the like button there. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything at all, hit me up in that comment section down below, and hit the subscribe button. Like I said, follow along with more garden adventures here on the Urban Gardener. I'll see you all on the next episode. If you haven't already, man. Okay. If you haven't already, man. Yeah, what's up, George? Yeah? George? Yeah? You liking that catnip over there? You hiding under there? I don't know if it's working too well if you're trying to hide. You got your tail flopping around out there. Welcome to what is basically going to be try again. I live in basically your Dexter. What are you doing? What are you doing in there? What are you doing, buddy? Hanging out on the fence there? Catching some shade? Reese's projects. What's up, dude? Did you want to be in the video? Can we put you in the video? Yeah? What you doing there?